Chill here with Sirius, Taurus Moon, Jupiter hour, Jupiter 15 degrees Cancer, and the Moon is opposing Neptune, separating from opposition to Neptune, applying to oppose Saturn. Lot of fortune is with Black Moon Lilith, 11 degrees Sag. Sun is trining Lilith from 11 degrees Aries. And the topic of today's discussion, yes, Venus 2 degrees Taurus, applying to square Pluto. This is addressing the common themes that we see regarding whether secret societies, elite, aristocracy, and criminals. Of the type of criminal class that can so-called get away with crime. And I'm going to address the emotional aspect of what I gathered from people that are survivors of basically their lineage. From people that can even be within those circles, and the conversation piques their interest, and sometimes have something to say, whether in the astral or telepathy or um, um, and I'm going to begin. All triggers apply for this episode. The people that grow into lineages that are bloodlines that belong to secret societies or are targeted by secret societies. A lot of them are exposed to shit ton of violence really early on, to the point of dissociation. The exposure can be through the astral plane, um, dream infiltration, and so on, using esoterics. Um, and the question is, is there intention with those to, let's say, be in control of the world esoterically? I guess probably, and they probably seek for the most economic way to do so, basically to safeguard their lineage. And sometimes these would be persecuted bloodlines, but they would also perpetrate persecution on not only others but also themselves. And when a child is exposed to extreme violence, sometimes both as victim and offender, but there is also a blend between the identities. Um, and with offenders, sometimes there is curiosity as to, for example, when I was attacked, I saw curiosity of basically the offender towards my experience. And this can be both because they're forced to do that, and both because this is something that they experience, and they try to have control over the experience of when they were harmed. Now, being exposed to shit ton of that dumb fuckery, the desire to detach and the desire to connect in a way that is safe, um, as well the desire to be free from shame, remorse, or repercussions, where innately we're talking about something that happens since childhood. It's kind of like all the echoes in the body say that something is wrong, and this is why there's a lot of dissociation and violence to cause dissociation and desensitization. Even when I think about EMDR, which is associated with Scientology, the method of healing is desensitization. And I heard from veterans that were dealing with the PTSD that said, I don't have PTSD because I don't feel guilty for what I did. And if persons feel guilty for what they did, then they can have PTSD. So basically, they can identify consciousness or empathy as the disease or as the sin or as the thing to rid oneself of. And then because it is so remote from basically what people call humanity, although this is so prevalent within humanity, is, um, then um, then there is a wish, there is a need for disorder and chaos to hide, but there's also a need for both the disorder and chaos to hide and reside, and the need for the order to have something that is can be counted on, and then that order becomes external. It can become rank, it can become DNA, and then even within that, the rituals are blending the order. For example, pedophilia is a blend of what is supposed to be an adult person, but actually, in many ways, practically isn't, with a young person, where the young person is seen as the profane, the adulterous, the guilty, and that young person is having the handler, but that young person or young child is supposed to literally plant urges in the adult person, to rape them and position them in front of camera, according to testimonies of people like Anneke Lucas. Now, these type of atrocities also include torture, energy siphoning, and murder. So rituals, and the people are in some sort of state of psychosis in many times when they do these things. Um, for example, when person is murdered, one may have a spiritual experience of them, um, either crossing over or healing, or seeing that as euthanasia. Um, and um, and at the same time, towards the world, people need to learn how to portray themselves as the most benevolent, doing the most malevolent things. But this is done also when child is exposed to scenarios where to torture and kill is basically the most benevolent thing to do than to keep someone alive, let's say. Um, while the door to the ghetto, or the abolishing of the jail experiment, um, is present. It's actually a part of the performative. It's not performative. But it's also part of the performative power of these societies, and it is that outside there is a whole different norm, and outside there are people. Then those people are basically the people that die, or the people that, and they can be seen as the profane if the people that die are bloodline associated. Then one could even become angry that somebody died, because now they no longer have to participate in those things. Um, Common people may feel if they are around war, and let's say somebody died before the war, or was assassinated before the war, or before, I don't know, pandemic, then they could be later seen as, they got away they got away with that. Alongside tremendous grief, or even missing. Now, because these people also do terrible things to one another, the mixtures of emotions that seem irresolvable is like, Anya Wick addressed it, is like glue. And it's kind of like people can be, it's also why these are called brotherhood sometimes, although it's not only men. Um, because people can fight, and something happens, and it's kind of like they would be present with the person, or even in energy, and all types of dynamics that seem to, I cannot say emulate, because those are real dynamics that are conjoining trauma bond and actual secure attachments phases that are part of trauma bond, but for expandable children that don't even have trauma bond. And so the relation to the outside world. And this is where people have been, how should I say? Let's take a story of, let's say, a Nazi person wants to help a person in concentration camp. The relational patterns between them would be such that, and let's say the person in concentration camp is there because they weren't participating in being Nazi. So the Nazi person would always want to bring that person back to the family. Okay, but at the same time help their family member in, let's say, opening the gates of the ghetto. Um, in that way, we have completely, what seems to be completely irrational behaviors, or very kind behaviors that are absolutely not bait, seen by people that seem that otherwise are completely on the side of doing evil, and also vice versa. Um, the when people go through repetitive times where they could have absolutely died, and they have to relate through domination, they can both have a desire for letting go of that domination in a safe setting that never really exists, but it can expose them to being susceptible to mind control, because the mind control with somebody else suddenly takes over, then there can be a sense of relief from having to protect oneself. And then if there is act of violence that the person is committing, sometimes there would be the control over, when one is the victim, is the control over the situation by planting the urge to in another to harm them. And they always wish that that other will not harm them, that that other will not fall into the so-called seduction, because those are fueling an extortion cult. And so the anger at the person that is supposedly falling to the seduction is real, because that person usually looks like an adult person, but psychically might not be. And the child is having handlers that are adults, and and the child is waiting to see, will that person violate me? And that can also create certain mechanisms within even people that were violated or exposed to that and are not in the cult, or targeted through the astral plane, to try to put people, particularly people in authority, in situations where they're like, hey, are they going to hurt me? Are they going to violate me? Let's see that they don't violate me. Let's see that they don't violate me. Let me see that they're not like the people that are going to violate the child. And I, by the way, do not have children because of this reason. Because I always wanted to see that a person will not violate me as a child. And another thing that can happen um, for people is the people that had to observe a lot of death and quite gruesome one. There can be all kinds of from survivor guilt, but people get dissociated, particularly if they had to be perpetrators, which is with the people that are, I think, usually in the physical ceremonies. Um, they tried to kidnap me to physical ceremonies several times, um, and then I was tortured, basically at hospital. Um, and then other people tortured at jail because it's like hospital or jail. Um, this was following my thesis on the body-mind question that basically exposed the mechanisms under which these crimes are committed and the intricacies. It wasn't aiming to do that, but it is basically um, exposing the scientific fundamentals that on which these practices, esoteric and not esoteric, work. Now, this sense of detachment is what bring people, a part of what bring people to see um, the world outside as sheeple, as people that just follow commands, even though within those societies people are absolutely mind controlled, particularly when they are programmers. Because the whole point is to have a decentralized web where if people are going to try to find who did that, they're going to, and that fuels later movies, um, art, culture, and myths. As in the case of Tanya Khun, where I showed the Neptune in her chart with Antares. Um, and no, I don't know who is Tanya Khun. For those who were pondering if I know who is she, no, I know only what is shown in the media. Um, Now, what we see as the elitist perception um, or detachment and so on and so forth is basically exposure to prolonged trauma of being both victim and perpetrator, dissociation without venue of going out, and because the let's say healthcare people are the ones at the juncture where they have to make sure that the people stay in the so-called lineage of family and that it doesn't leak. It means that if a person is coming to, let's say, see a psychologist, as I did after the Me Too, the psychologist's job is to try to see what was the trauma, so to re-traumatize, so that the person will again be susceptible, whether to mind control and so on and so forth. Um, and because there is energy siphoning, there are phases where the people are not believed. Um, Particularly when we hear discourse of who are real victims, who are not. All of the people there are victims. it's it's kind of like when we look at it as feminism and patriarchy. Okay, it's not like the patriarchs are not victims. A happy, thriving, healthy man, sexually, emotionally, and so on, doesn't think to oppress a woman. He doesn't. It's not that. If he's gay, then he doesn't care to oppress a woman. In fact, he might care for women rights. But if he's straight, again, is uh, wants the best for himself and for others, and whether he has more for this woman or not, then he just lives his life. Um, this For men to want to oppress women, they need to feel extremely disempowered by them. And I just described the mechanisms that create those things. Of course, I addressed people that were victims of rape, men and women. They may feel that their power is in sexuality. A lot of people may see pictures of Jeffrey Epstein. And for those that have a little bit of ability to see certain things in faces, not always, then they can say this person was raped and had to be seductive. And um, and he was finding power in what sexual seduction or spells or lust spells or something like that, and his ability to basically seduce, which later was translated to seducing young women and having those women. Basically, if he would equally share his power with a woman, it would be the power to seduce someone to come to do things that are not good for them, as happened to him. But underneath that, if you watch episode 9 with Alandra by Annika Lucas, we see that there is a lot of continuous torture without ability to escape. And again, the survivors manage to escape, and they have to hold a certain distinction between them and the perpetrators, because they had to kill, they had to rape, they were consequently killed, and they managed to get away. And so they can be a coping mechanism um, to discern them from that which they ran away from, to keep them out even, and all kinds of beliefs such as when one is really wanting to come out, then they manage to, and so on and so forth, because this mindset helped to get, I guess, helped these people to get out of the cults, or that is the only rational explanation of how they managed to get the fuck out of there, while the people sitting in prison, like let's say Dutroux, that could be tortured in prison and have the same conditions that created him as perpetrator being recreated. And the way that the psychology, psychiatry works there um, is, I can almost sign my name on document that says this is so. Okay, it's that much I understand that this is the structure that perpetuates. Do I know how to come out of this structure? Um, Basically, I posted these videos because addressing the core issues can bring solutions. When person sees so many people dead, it looks like they are superhuman. It may look like, and not only that, some people may look like, because they were not even allowed to die, it may look like they are undying. Chiron, fellow with Chiron Rahu, I have Chiron Rahu. One of my astrology teachers have Chiron Rahu. And here's Rahu and Peter per se. Um, Chiron was the wounded healer that could heal everyone but could not die. And um, people that have Chiron either closer to Ketu or Chiron Ketu, they could have come out of those situations. People that have Chiron Rahu, we are kind of like, it's either we manage to curate that and something many of us began to be exposed to even as children. Even from very young child, I knew um, that I could be the offender in certain settings. And I don't know, yeah, Ken, and I don't know who is the person that was with astrally in my infant child consciousness. Um, but I saw a young boy, and then I saw that young boy had interest to experience things as a woman, but then I would experience myself as that young boy, and um, and of course, along the years of my life, that develops like a relation with somebody that I don't know and have embodied, um, and me being outside of those circles have even managed to curate things. Um, for example, I was not like sexually attracted to children. I did feel uncomfortable around people and around children as well because I felt so weird in the world, and and sexuality was terrifying. And then some time it began to curate, where I no longer feel weird around people. Um, and and then I realized that um, I was exposed to the issue of like when something is innocent, I guess, or childlike, then I would want to connect with that. And I think that this is like, let's say it's kind of like if I make it a scale between a healthy, thriving person um, to pedophile to sex offender, then this is somewhere along the scale that is a very minute version of this, and that I managed to somehow curate when I met my non-erotic child needs somehow by miracle. And I think with people that don't meet that, they would either stay like I was, like not mingling with people, people that are also tortured. Then they could develop limerence towards what is looking like the innocent child because they want to connect with their innocence and feel unable to, and that can create a eroticized version of the innocent. And those people are almost ripe for extortion cults, is the people that act on it that are ripe for extortion cults, and that the differentiator is to what level these people were tortured and kept without ability to die and without ability to come out. Now, astrologically speaking, favorable aspects from Neptune can be curating and can assist person to connect with unconditional love, and then they may wish to come out of the cult. Sometimes, if I take from testimony of Annika Lucas, um, she went through extreme aggression towards her as child that was emotionally from a woman targeting her as a child, um, and then she said she doesn't want anymore to be there. And she said that this aggression was different because the other aggressions, um, basically, if I combine with other testimonies, the other aggressions were attempts of people to relate with Annika Lucas, um, and and they were connecting with her in that way. But this one was hatred that that was a point of disconnect, and then she said she doesn't want anymore to be there. Um, and it can be very weird because of these children, also the molesters, they went to sometimes sadistic things and so on. Then the connection just is distorted in that particular way. There was a guy, Sam Vaknin, Dr. Sam Vaknin talks about that relation to torture when he addresses narcissism. Um, Now, all of these things together do create a situation where people identify people as, oh, they've also gone through this. Oh my God, this is so tasty. Um, it's yes, it's Passover food. So um, so people identify with the people now because the relations are so convoluted. It can seem like there is an enclosed relation, domain of relation, that nobody outside can emulate or that nobody outside can understand. But it's never secure attachment and that is consistent. It is secure attachment in the sense that people can feel like everything can happen in that connection, it will still not be lost. But it is not secure attachment in the sense of actually being safe and free. Although what is reiterated to the people is that they are free, because they find the freedom within confinement or within uh, torture perpetration cycles and so on. Um, and then the people, um, because of these people had to escape, let's say, genocide or democide, but later they also had to commit those things. Then in those Holocaust timelines, it's like they have to betray everyone to stay alive. And I guess the programming was meant for them to survive anything and continue the lineage or something like that. Um, and the connection is also very deep, but it is also um, very not safe. Okay, in the sense that what's come to sexual boundary violation and all of these things that happen, and it looks like, oh, it's a different standards of society, and then people even the societies where people even curse themselves medically because of course those things have effect on the endocrine system, the nervous system, the bloodline, and so on. And then they try to negate it by energy siphoning, which results in material, emotional, and societal collapse. Um, and then when a person has been exposed to so much atrocities and they seem undying, it seems like, well, the other people are sheeple, although these other people can be the family even. And depopulation, um, um, and here's the thing, even what is seen as the profane, it's kind of like the sacred. In Hebrew there is the kedusha v'tum'ah, which basically means for the sacred and the profane, they are in union within the person. Now, yes, but there is constant attempt to discern them. This is why people wash their hands before and after entering a cemetery, um, because the cemetery is both sacred, but the separation of the spaces, because the dead are seen as also um, unsacred or tum'ah, but I don't know how to say, probably profane. Um, all those things, of course, develop abundance of neurosis. But when people go to, let's say, therapy, the setting of the therapy, and this is was, oh, let's see how do we make it so that it won't happen again, which is basically an onset to perpetuate the trauma and make it so that the person will be victimized um, until they will not speak about this, but if people speak about this, then indeed there are attempts to control the discourse or to channel the discussion through control, because there was tremendous amount of helplessness, and thus the need to control perpetuates this helplessness. Helplessness here can be denoted by Neptune, and Neptune can also be eternity, longing to the eternal people of eternity, and so on. People are talking about the Jews. No, I saw this also in First Nations tribes. People from Asia said that this was even Chinese methods to train communities to survive no matter what, but also to be in position where they either fight or die. But then they keep perpetuating the persecution um, because the atrocities are just so tremendous, and healing from them is so difficult. And it's kind of like people have all the ways, because of the control and issue and the innovation, it's kind of like they have all the ways to completely curate a person, even if they were like a Mark Dutroux, and they hold it back. But the reason that they have this and they hold it back is also linked back to these dynamics. Um, um, the societal collapse within becomes the societal collapse outside, and yeah. So this is more or less what I've gathered. Um,